We thank God for what God is doing in ECWA Student Ministry. ECWA Student Ministry has done a lot. We have so many people that they can't just remove their encounters and experiences on the platform of ESM from who they are today and what God is doing in them and through them.
Little did anyone know that what started like a mustard seed could become a gigantic tree that has produced several fruits. This is the story of ECWA Student Ministry, ESM, the campus ministry of the Evangelical Church Winning All ECWA. In this documentary video, you will get answers to the following questions: why ESM started, how ESM started, the actual vision of ESM, the pioneers and midwives of ESM, the achievements and challenges of ESM, why you need to actively be part of ESM, and lots more. Come join me as we explore the move that transformed the destiny of many young people and has produced several disciples and great leaders in missions, church ministries, politics, medicine, engineering, legal institutions, management, and the list goes on.
It's amazing how what began so little has become so big.
In 1893, the Lord brought 3 young white missionaries,
Walter Gowans, Thomas Kent, Roland Bingham,
who were in their 20s, to the sub-Saharan region of Africa to save the souls of 80 million people who were dying without Christ. Although Gowans and Kent did not live to witness the fruits of their labor, as they both died within the first year of arrival in Nigeria, Roland Bingham, undeterred by discouragement, continued the mission with great perseverance. Many converts were won for Christ, and in the course of time formed themselves into an indigenous church called ECWA, which has grown to become the largest evangelical church in Africa. Several years later, ECWA began to experience a mass exodus of our young people to other churches, and many tagged ECWA as a dead church.
You see, when we were in student, there was a slogan going on that ECWA is dead. So if you come from ECWA background, you'll hear many of such.
So as we began to pray, we also realized from this our interaction that almost every head of fellowship group on the Unijust campus was from ECWA background, but was no longer participating in ECWA. From FCS to NIFES to University Christian Fellowship to different types of departmental fellowship group leaders, but we are no longer participating in ECWA. So as we are approaching them, we know you are from ECWA background. They say yes, but they have stopped now. They are in deeper life. They are in this, they are in that. And that made us to start thinking.
We were so concerned that we needed to provide that gap where especially professionals can come into the church departments and fill in the departments and also contribute. And so that was a major reason why we had that burden. And I remember the first meeting in a small, one of the students' accommodations, and after that we began to think of how to move it forward. I wasn't very much involved with the leadership, but I was quite involved with the program itself.
Around this same time, there was a mighty move of God all over campuses in Nigeria. ECWA sons and daughters in several campuses were so concerned about this mass exodus, thus began to pray for revival. They longed to see a generation of young people in ECWA that would labor for the growth, development of the church and world evangelization instead of leaving the church. Such campuses include, but not limited to this, the University of Ibadan, University of Ilorin, and the University of Jos.
I worked in the University of Jos. I saw people register in the library, and majority of the people I saw who are Christians are from ECWA background. Address is ECWA churches, ECWA churches. And these people, when they graduate, they don't identify with ECWA. They are very vibrant Christians.
In the late 1980s, there was a young lady, a missionary in her early 20s, by the name Leslie Pelt from Chicago, serving in ECWA Christian Education Department when late Reverend Samuel Curry was Christian Education Director.
During the years that I had the privilege of being a small part of something great that God did through ECWA Student Ministry, it was in the late 80s and early 1990s I was working in the ECWA Christian Education Department under the leadership of Reverend Samuel Curry. And we worked with the fellowship groups, men's fellowship, women's fellowship, youth fellowship. But I remember hearing a lot of concern about the fact that university-educated students were leaving ECWA. There was a mass exodus from ECWA, and some were leaving the church entirely. Some were just leaving ECWA as a denomination for some place where they felt more welcome and more at home.
Leslie saw a need for ECWA to establish a student-based ministry because of the obvious reasons around, which prompted her to write a proposal in 1989 to the then ECWA executive under the leadership of late Reverend Panya Baba. Around the same time, there was a young man by the name Ezekiel Ojimadu, who was working as a library officer in the University of Jos before his admission to study medicine in the same institution.
So one of the days I was shelving books in the library and picked a book, Root from Dry Ground, the story of ESM. That caught my attention. I left what I was doing there because it was a little prophet. I read that book and tears were running down my cheek. And what came out of that encounter was that ECWA needs revival to mobilize her youth, because the pioneers of SIM, the youngest was Bingham 21, Kent was 23, and Gowan was 26.
During this period, there was a case between ECWA and AMOC, for which many believers across Nigeria were concerned. They viewed it as a battle between light and darkness, and not just a challenge to ECWA as a denomination. So news went viral on many campus fellowships in Nigeria to pray for ECWA to win. It was this situation that brought Ezekiel Ojimadu, Gitmas Tanko, Musa Denkyau, Musa Panyababa, Chris Hayab, and others from Unijos to approach the then ECWA executives as they heard that every ECWA member was to contribute ₦1 each in case ECWA lost the appeal.
And as we met on campus, there was a sense of dissatisfaction. Why can't we come together and pray? So that made some of us in Unijos to start meeting together to pray about the ECWA AMOC case. And we found an empty classroom in the evening after 5 p.m. after lectures, and we all come together, meet in a class, share our burden and pray.
That day marked the beginning of a great move that battered ECWA Student Association ESA and now ECWA Student Ministry ESM. The leadership gave attention to these students.
One of the ECWA executive, Reverend Panya Baba, went to his filing cabinet and he pulled out this proposal that had been there for quite some time, and he said, Christian education has not forgotten about you. They have this proposal. He gave it to the students, and they read through it. And that day, they went from the ECWA executive straight to Christian education. And that's the day that I met Ezekiel Ojimadu, I think Kalechi, Musa, I can't even remember all of the students that were a part of that delegation, but that was the day that I had the privilege of beginning to walk alongside some of the most inspiring students I've ever met in my life.
Dr. Ezekiel Ojimadu and Leslie Pelt then, who is now Leslie Angelson, because it was Ezekiel Ojimadu, who mobilized the students on the campus of University of Jos, and Leslie in the Christian Education Department had similar burden, and so when the matter came to fore, she really gave it the needed impetus to push it forward.
Leslie Pelt began to meet with these students to develop a framework for the student ministry. ECWA eventually inaugurated her campus ministry on 19th April 1992 as ECWA Student Association at Jos ECWA Theological Seminary, JETS, with a theme, Vision Encounter, text taken from Isaiah 6, and had Reverend Chris Abaga and Reverend Silas Yako as guest speakers. Later, the name changed to ECWA Student Ministry, ESM, in 1994. The following year, there was a massive conference of ECWA Student Association that saw the attendance of over 450 students from about 23 campuses across Nigeria. This conference, which took place at ECWA Theological Seminary, Igbaja in Kwara State, was a very memorable, groundbreaking and successful conference, as ECWA headquarters released funds to mobilize students from virtually all higher institutions of learning in Nigeria. All ECWA executive and SIM Nigeria were in attendance, with virtually all ECWA departments, units and agency representatives to give an awareness about their various ministries, and many students signed up in different ministries and departments they would love to serve using their diverse gifts and talents. From the inception of the ECWA Student Ministry, the then ECWA Student Association, the vision was to pray for revival in the church, to mobilize students and get them involved in missions with EMS, to bring strong discipleship to campuses, and to equip students to come back into church and use their skills for God's kingdom and His glory. Series of meetings were held between Leslie and the students, where they had discussions around ESA constitution, anthem, structures, and the likes.
Our focus was discipleship and missions, and we tried to make sure that everything reflected discipleship and missions. And so we now did the first constitution. By the way, Barrister Musa Baba was instrumental to many of this constitutional engineering as a law student and later lawyer. In fact, he was key in the first election we had. He was in that election committee and was one of those that helped to put together the various constitutions we had received from various institutions and develop a national constitution. Coincidentally, the person that wrote the ESM anthem is Ojimadu's younger brother, Tochukwu. And so when we were looking for an anthem, he said, no, he went to write that music. So I think history should reflect that.
Students of the Most High God, we are together in love. On Christ the solid rock we stand, wisdom and strength we have. We are holy people, we are holy nation with vision and encounter. In Christ, ESM remembers, we realize the vision of our founders will not die in our time.
Thereafter, Ojimadu and his team began to move from state to state to establish more ESA chapters on different campuses.
I remember we had to go and establish other chapters in other schools. I was to go to Zaria, Kaduna, to establish a chapter in Zaria and Kaduna. Then others like Dr. Musa Dankia was to go to Gombe. Then Ezekiel was to go to the east.
I came in contact with the ECWA student ministry in the University of Ilorin, but then it was ESA, that's ECWA Student Association.
I was invited to Jos for a CEC meeting, being a student then, by a fellow student who is a Baptist member. He said he know one ECWA member and he would recommend me to come for this meeting. And then the mandate was given to me to start that fellowship in Yola. And by the year 1993, we established ESA, as it were, in Federal University of Technology, Yola.
I finished from Ahmadu Bello Universities, and that is where I started ECWA Student Ministry.
In 1994, God brought engineer David Olatunde, which was a huge answered prayer for ESA, then because he had a wealth of experience in campus ministry.
Honestly, I'm so thrilled. I won't hide it from you. I'm fulfilled. And when I look back, I feel satisfied to see what ESM is today. They're all over the place. And people are enjoying themselves, and people who know them are also enjoying them.
Prior to his assumption of office as the first ESA coordinator, Uncle Dave was formerly a zonal coordinator with NIFES before ECWA invited him to be the first national coordinator of the ministry until 1997.
Our brother David was not only an engineer by profession, but he became a mentor and a shepherd and a friend and a disciple maker to the ECWA student ministry members. He blessed and inspired the Christian education department as he came on as a staff of Christian Ed. And we rejoiced. We rejoiced.
After Uncle Dave, Auntie Leslie Pelt, now Leslie Engelson, acted between 1997 to 1999. Then, Reverend Oludare Aliu was appointed in 1999, who served until 2006 and handed over to Reverend Dan Luke in 2006, who in turn passed the baton to Reverend Barry Edward Bass in 2014, and now Pastor Oluwaseun Adeniyi Oyekunle, the incumbent coordinator, who took over on 1st May 2022.
I was in this department. This is the 18th year of me being in this department. When I first came to the department, I met Reverend Oludare as the coordinator then followed by Reverend Dr. Dan Luke, and followed by Reverend Barry Bass, and now is Reverend Pastor Oluwaseun. He is the current coordinator of the ministry.
Other people who contributed significantly at the formative stage of ESA, especially in the areas of discipleship, leadership training of students from different campuses, include Reverend Samuel Akeju, Reverend Dr. Adams Abimbola Shaba.
Went to Bauchi with Shock Broad, our brother engineer Dave, Reverend Sam Akeju. I remember going to Tafawa Balewa University in Bauchi, and so we were going around, and so that was the earliest day. Secondly, there was no budget. These students, these earliest pioneers, actually tasked themselves. Imagine people traveling from Akwa Ibom, Port Harcourt, David Umune from Umahia area, Oaba, and then you have all these people traveling from wherever they are, to Jos, and so that was quite demanding.
When I joined the discipleship ministry in 1993, how it came about was the president of ECWA during that year was Reverend Panya Baba. He went for a conference somewhere, and he saw the need for a discipleship within ECWA.
It was at this point that Chuck Broad, a missionary with SIM, arrived in Nigeria with Equipping the Saints discipleship training material by David Dawson. This material was used to train many ECWA sons and daughters on campuses.
Chuck Broad, who later on became an SIM director, had come to Nigeria to introduce Equipping the Saints as a discipleship ministry. So he had come as a missionary to introduce discipleship, but not too many people were seeing what it was. So Reverend Sam Akeju was one of those who were very quick to see this thing and worked with Chuck Broad. And since Chuck Broad came for a national thing and nobody was really that excited, and then here in Jos, here were students who were interested, he immediately introduced the thing. He said, okay, let me introduce it. We said, okay, let me work with this number of people to start. So that's what happened. Chuck Broad was going to campus on UniJos, meeting in students' rooms with students to start equipping the saints.
So you come to our place almost twice a week, sometimes once a week. That's how we continue with equipping the saints to book 1, 2, and 3, that time with him. And that had a great impact in our lives.
The story of ESM or ESA cannot be spoken without mentioning Chuck Broad, because he was handling the discipleship, going from one place, one city to another to train ESM, ESA. Sorry if I say ESM because that's what is known now, but then ESA, doing discipleship program. Then we were using Equipping the Saints. Equipping the Saints 1, 2, 3.
ETS on campus. Of course, in ATBU then, we were small, like I said, about 50, 70 at most when I joined. And so ETS was the main bane of ESM ATBU, especially after the training we got from JOS, the headquarters. Organized a training on ETS when it was introduced and how to use it. So we came back, or they came back, and we were impacted. And to be honest, I think in all my stay in ESM until this moment, the greatest impact is that study material or that discipleship material.
ESM has continued to impact lives. I remember that when I was in EMS as a director, I once went to the University of Maiduguri, and you could just feel the energy, the power, the presence of God in that ESM gathering in University of Maiduguri. I was so elated, so encouraged to know that God was raising a whole new generation of ECWA sons and daughters through ECWA student ministry.
In the past 30 years, ESM has been able to fulfill her vision in the following ways.
Felt with good discipleship will be good material for the church to send out as missions, so that, as we said then, that thing, the vision of our founders, will not die in our time. And that if we choose to be doctors like we did and go to this, or pharmacists like Chris Hayabu was a pharmacy student and will later on go on, now he's serving as a production manager in ECWA Central Pharmacy Limited. Whether you are Ezekiel, who later on is now in Elwa Hospital in Liberia as a missionary, all of the ETCO, we felt that if we disciple ourselves well and we keep ourselves educated about ECWA and her needs, God will better use us in the departments and the institutions, in the churches, in our local churches, and so on.
We have many people that we serve together in the fellowship that they are working, serving the accountant, up to 10 people in the workforce of ECWA Finance today that are serving the accountant in various levels. And what we learn in the school has actually prepared us for the task ahead.
One of those things that shaped my own life was a section on the cost of following Jesus. And it is, for me, it was there that I got to understand that it is not your size. So this ministry that ESM is talking about, it may not necessarily be that you need to have a PhD or something to serve Jesus or to
to be an evangelist or to be a missionary. So the first thing is you surrender your life to Jesus.
We actually saw some very, very giant strides made in the era of discipleship, where we saw students graduating from universities to become pastors, some of them graduating from universities to become directors in ECWA. Many of them graduated to become elders in many ECWA churches. Some of them actually graduated and left the country for other involvements and engagements outside of Nigeria. And we saw that as a very big privilege to be part of the ministry that the Lord was bringing about in the lives of this young one.
Yes, ESM has really impacted in my life. It's really a lot. In fact, it grew me to be the leader I am today, both spiritually and physically. I remember initially when responsibilities were given, I shy away from them because I felt I'm not bold enough to be a leader. But because through ESM, I given responsibility, as I said, to study ESM. From there, election was done. I was made the first secretary, and that's how I started my leadership experience.
I want to say specifically, ECWA is having an asset in its students because they are the future of the church. In all aspects of the church, in all ramifications, in all departments, we have the manpower that can be able to run effectively the various departments in ECWA.
But the ministry have provided platforms to be able to exercise your God-given leadership trait. Because I remember when I was appointed as the ECWA Student National Secretary, we have this passion to pray, to fast and pray. But now I need to coordinate a lot of people to pray. And then we have a lot of prayer sessions across different regions.
My early years in the fellowship then was a conference we had in Suba, I think around 99 or 2000 or thereabout. We invited Bro Willie Akane to preach at that time. So I remember he preached from Matthew 20. So, and he was trying to explain to us that if we are just doing things that doesn't really matter to the master, it amounts to nothing, that we are doing nothing. So almost every one of us, in fact, that was when I met the current national coordinator of ESM, Pastor Sim. So we were together in the prayer bound at that time. And almost everybody that attended that meeting, that conference that year, can still make a reference to it. So the message was very touching, and it's helped us to establish our faith. All along, we've been part and parcel of supporting the ministry.
By 1995, we had a national conference. I was made the national president. Then I took over from the founding president, Dr. Ezekiel Ojimato. I saw that as another platform of, in a national way, trying to transfer the passion in me to cut across ECWA students from different regions of the country. So all my vision and desire then was, let's see how to duplicate this. Let it have impact in the life of several people. And then I started talking about how to get students to begin short-term missions in their various zones, in their various schools, so that during their holiday, they can get attached to mission agencies and try to have an experience. Because one thing with this, if we all have just the theoretical knowledge, I have no place to have an immediate practice. There's a tendency of gradually having the zeal, fade off. So that became part of the thing that when I was the national president, we will try to see the zones get involved in that, have some of their students get involved during their holidays, spend 2 weeks, spend weekend with missionaries. And when they come back, they have this, their understanding started changing. They started seeing the picture of the power of the gospel in transforming lives. That with the little they know, added with the secular knowledge also they have, they were able to penetrate the mission field and get attention of young ones in the mission field, come towards them, and they could preach the little gospel they know and have a little time to do small follow-up using the ETS material that we have.
Immediately when we finish from campus, we have the sense of mission. We have the sense of responsibility that once we are saved, we have the responsibility to save others as well. ESM, ESA then, has a purpose, and the purpose is equipping ECWA sons and daughters that are in the high institutions of learning within the country. So our programs involve discipleship, which is ETS, and well, we do a form of fellowship too, because we are all youths then.
ECWA Student Ministry impacted in our lives as individual and collectively as a people, because what we are today is as a result of ECWA Student Ministry. We want to thank God because we had some very interesting experiences.
So when I start attending ESM activities, I understand this is where I belong. Because what they are doing there in ESM, it will help me to understand what I'm coming here for.
It was through ECWA Student Ministry, ECWA Student Association, that they introduced postgraduate diploma program in our theological schools. Because we had this issue that sometimes they would say they didn't go to theology school. So when they finish whatever they went to learn in the university, they now say, okay, let them go and get this postgraduate. So I can say the postgraduate diploma in theology came as a result of the vision of ESA, now ESM.
From just a chapter in Unijos, ESM now has 121 chapters and a chapter in the United Kingdom, 4 secondary school chapters, 8 zones and 7 volunteer zonal coordinators. ESM has also organized 200 conferences both at the zonal and national levels, carried out over 500 evangelism outreaches in villages and campuses, planted 12 churches, revived and strengthened over 50 weak churches, and trained over 5,000 students in equipping the saints. Through the ministry and vision of ESM, over 50 ESM associates are now full-time missionaries with EMS, SIM, CAPRO, and the Great Commission movement. ESM has also produced over 250 pastors, several church elders, agency leaders, ECWA departments, and unit heads. Time will not permit us to mention those who are also making tremendous impact in secular spheres such as politics, civil service, tech, health, and the financial sector.
Over the years, I have worked and served and met the expectations that I had desired for ESA or ESM.
Over these years of my involvement in ministry, one of those privileges that I had was to be a president of ESM in the University of Jos, and also as an opportunity to be a leader here of ESM in the UK. This various position has shaped me, helped me to build up leadership skills that I have now used to serve the Lord as an elder in a church, but also in various places that I have opportunity to serve at work or various charity organizations. So ESM has shaped my life, and I've made useful contribution to my life today.
I really appreciate God for ECWA Student Ministry, those that caught the vision and established it. So the first impact that ESM made in my life was giving me an environment to grow spiritually, having rededicated my life. The Bible study, the prayer meetings, the Sunday services were awesome. We met people who had given themselves over to the Lord in prayers and study of the Word of God that nurtured us in the way of the Lord, teaching us the Bible, explaining the Bible to us, showing us how we can practically experience and exemplify what we read in the Bible. So that's an impact that ESM made in my life. And also socially, I was able to make quite a number of good friends in ECWA Student Ministry.
Where I am today by the social grace of God as an international student in the United Kingdom, it was one of my fellowship mates that told me about it. That's one of the ESM members who had traveled, and then he gave me the procedure and all, and then here I am today, all to the praise and the glory of God.
One of the set I work with, one of them is David Egger. He's in UK now, and the second set, his wife Jemima, and they are doing well, and they are promoting ECWA student ministry. They've started even a chapter in UK, and they are doing well. I remember also David, when he was serving, he's doing his NYSC in Bayelsa State. He called me when he was posted for his primary assignment that there is no an evangelical church in that place. So I encouraged him, why can't you start one? And before he finished his primary assignment, he planted the church. EMS had to send a missionary there to take over, and again, he saw himself as a missionary again, because another one I've worked with closely is Emmanuel Ode Agabi, who is now an SIM missionary in Mali.
Well, the relationship continues in the sense that several of the people that we were together that time, some of them later in life came to the seminary. Then some of those people who are already in the seminary, they had the opportunity to go to the university too and became a professor in some of the religious studies department. Several of those people attended the conference either at Igbaja or in Aba, became missionary, and they now met some of the people they saw in the seminary preparing for ministry. They come across again. So I met some of them in Liberia. I went to Liberia. I met some of them. And the initial unity that was there, we just came across and said, okay, yes, we were together because ESM has formed and shaped our lives.
One of the reasons, again, why ESM was established was also to help members, sons and daughters of ECWA, who are graduating from secular schools with different professions, not to abandon ECWA organization in seeking for money, but to think about how they can also get involved, be employed within ECWA, either as a doctor, as a nurse, as an engineer, and see how you can contribute your own quota in helping ECWA establish departments to be solid and to grow, being a member of ECWA. And this has really helped us. Incidentally, the present ECWA president, when ESM was established, he was a student in a secular institution. So by extension, he was a member of ESM. But today, is the ECWA, is the president of ECWA organization. I mean, there are some of us who also graduated and seek employment in ECWA, and they rose to a very high position. Like at one time, finance director. He graduated from Ilorin, and he became, finance director. He made so much contribution on the headquarters that the headquarters did not even want him to go. They had to create another department for him to head.
We cannot but remember some of our fallen heroes who paid the ultimate price for the ministry during their lifetime. Sunday Nache Achi, ESM president, murdered at the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University because of tract evangelism on campus.
There used to be, one man used to farm onions during the dry season there. That was where I saw the body of Sunday. I was the one who saw it, and I could identify it was Sunday because, like I said, I was with him up until around 2 or so when I left him. His boxers was what identified him for me, because he was wearing a white singlet, but he had a boxer that was checkered, and I know that that was the clothes I left him in. And so the journey to telling Engineer Tokan for me stopped there, and that's how we lost him. I really cannot say what really happened after I left. But later on, I found out it's like they broke the door to the room or something. I don't know whether it was set up, but one thing I'll continue to maintain is that his body was just near where if you go to ATPU today, where the main mosque of the school is, the one in Yelwa, if you go to where the main mosque is, his body was not quite, say, 600 meters away from the body. I mean, from that place, from the mosque, maybe like 400 meters or 500 at most away from there. And so I concluded, in my own personal conclusion, I concluded that these Muslim people, those who have sworn to drink blood and see blood spill, decided since they couldn't get Abraham and his other brothers who had initially gone out, let the president pay. But I also take it that maybe because they saw them together, I don't know.
Eric McVean, who was killed in 2017 while trying to protect ESM instruments during the crisis at Modibo Adamawa University of Technology, Yola. Brother Olaleye Ebiwoye, who died on 12th November 2021 in an accident on a mission trip to the Federal University of Technology, Akure, for an outreach organized by ESM Ibadan Zone. Brother Ruben Esmaf Kefi, who died in an accident while trying to arrange for Esmaf end-of-the-year picnic and the church carol in December 2021. ECWA Student Ministry was not established just to add to the existing number of fellowships on campus, but to disciple students who will go and disciple others on campus and beyond. Those who will use their skills to build ECWA churches, units, departments, and the body of Christ in general.
Yeah, it's not very different from what we had. The vision of our founders will not die in our time. So what it means is that we need to look back and say, really, what is at the heart of this vision? Then look at our setting now and say, Lord, how will this vision translate to what you have us do now? There's nothing more than that. So whether you're in the church, whether you're in a department, a unit, in so-called secular employment, the issue is that that vision that God gave that led to you and I being in ECWA, there's a reason.
And really, missions has changed. The way we do missions has changed. And in this present time, missions can best be done by professionals, people who have graduated from polytechnics, universities, and other higher institutions. The general literacy or educational level of the society has increased. And so the kind of missionaries that we need these days are actually those that are proficient in their own profession, who will be able to relate to the modern day generation.
The number one challenge of ESM is human resource. We lack enough hands for campus missions. Likewise, the volunteer coordinators are not well catered for and are but a few, whereas the task is enormous.
And my call to the church, especially ECWA leadership, wherever this ministry is in some of our DCCs, I'm calling to all the DCC executives to please help see how this ministry will continue to grow, and also back this ministry, whether morally, financially, with whatever way that they can be able to help and assist this ministry to continue to grow. You know, this time around we are losing our young ones. Sometimes you see our members going to these schools. Before you know it, some other churches have taken them away. So because they are being captivated by so many things. And we do neglect our students when they go to campuses. Sometimes we don't even visit them. We don't know who and who are there even in the school. So this ministry is there for us to help us to maintain our children wherever they are.
We therefore request for your partnership and involvement to do ministry with us in the following areas: by being one of ESM prayer supporters, financial supporters, campus mission volunteer, and campus visitation member.
And so I'm praying that God will continue to lift ESM to greater heights until the coming of Christ. To God be the glory.